Hello, everyone. I hope you're having a wonderful day. Today, we'll dive into a heartfelt story between Tu Tieu and Uri, a journey of love, sacrifice, and the struggles of everyday life. From quiet mornings filled with hope to evenings weighed down by choices, this is not just a story about romance, but also about resilience and the courage to keep going, even when everything seems uncertain. If you enjoy this video, don't forget to hit that subscribe button so you won't miss the upcoming episodes filled with more drama and emotion. Now, let's get started. The morning began quietly. The first light of dawn slipped through the cracks of Tu Tieu's modest wooden home. She appeared before the camera with her usual calm, a smile that seemed fragile but sincere. Her voice was soft, carrying greetings and wishes for peace to those watching. But beneath that smile lingered exhaustion, the kind only mothers know. Behind her was silence, heavy yet unspoken, like a river flowing deep under ice. She admitted she could not upload videos as often as she wished. Motherhood demanded her time, her strength, her very breath. Her child, still small, slept soundly in the other room, his breathing tethering her to a rhythm of endless responsibility. She was young, but life had pressed her too quickly into adulthood. Dreams had given way to survival, yet her eyes still softened as she spoke, her gratitude sincere. She thanked those unseen viewers who stayed with her, who made her feel less alone in the labyrinth of everyday struggles. Her words drifted like petals, fragile, easily scattered, but still carrying resilience. In that moment, she stood between two worlds, the yearning to create and the weight of survival. Her hello wasn't just a greeting. It was a quiet call for strength, for unseen hands to steady her as she faced another uncertain day. As the morning stretched forward, Tu Tieu's home filled with hurried steps. Her child still slept, tiny breaths rising and falling like a tide. She whispered promises to him, swearing she would return soon. Her hands packed quickly. Clothes, milk, small comforts, as if leaving behind fragments of herself to ease her absence. When she reached Grandma Tang's simple wooden door, the day seemed softer. The old woman greeted her with warmth, cradling the child with the ease of someone who had carried generations. The baby stirred only slightly before resting again in her arms, wrapped in age-old care. Tu Tieu lingered at the doorway, torn between apology and gratitude. Every goodbye felt heavier than the last, though it was only for a day. She explained she would be harvesting fruit, rushing to market before the sun grew too hot. Grandma Tang nodded, reassuring her that the child would be safe, that love would fill the space until she returned. As Tu Tieu stepped away, her shadow stretched long across the dirt road. Her footsteps carried both urgency and hesitation, as though she were running not just toward work, but away from helplessness. Inside her chest, two forces clashed, the guilt of leaving her child and the duty to provide. Each step was a sacrifice, painted in shades of quiet courage. Far away from the dirt roads of the farm, Uri sat in his office. Instead of contracts and papers, his mind was filled with the image of Tu Tieu among the fruit trees, bathed in golden light. He told himself that today would be the day. The flowers, the ring, the words he had carried for so long would finally be spoken. But then the phone rang. Miss Land's voice was urgent. Adam, the client, was on his way. Shipments needed inspection. Quality had to be checked. Details confirmed. The chains of responsibility tightened, dragging him back to business. Uri's hand lingered on the phone as a shadow crossed his face. Behind his image of success lay a truth he had hidden. He was bankrupt. Everything he had built had collapsed like a grand building falling in silence. Tonight's proposal wasn't just a confession of love. It was a test. Would Tu Tieu stay when there was no fortune, no title, no guarantee? The thought tightened in his chest. Business demanded his presence. Love demanded his courage. He rose, walking not toward flowers, but toward duty, silently promising he would return once the day's demands were done. The sun rose high as Uri led Adam through the orchards. The sweet scent of ripened fruit filled the air, but Uri's mind was elsewhere. Adam moved like a man of precision, inspecting crates, testing fruit, asking sharp questions, prices, transport, tonnage, all stacked like stones on Uri's shoulders. He smiled, he bargained, he explained, outwardly calm, inwardly trembling. His thoughts wandered to Tu Tieu, to the flowers waiting, to the ring burning a hole in his pocket. Was he betraying his heart by letting business come first? Or was this proof that money still dictated his life even as he yearned for freedom? By the time Adam tasted a custard apple and nodded in approval, Uri could barely focus. His world felt divided, contracts on one side, Tu Tieu on the other. Somewhere between the two, his bankrupt heart searched for a truth only love could answer. Hours later, when the last handshake was done, Uri returned home. The sky was painted with the bruised colors of late afternoon. On his desk lay the ring, the necklace, and the bouquet. Symbols fragile, yet heavy with meaning. He washed away the dust of the orchard, changed into a clean shirt, and looked in the mirror. The reflection was not the CEO he once was, but a man stripped bare by failure, clinging to hope. His pulse raced, not with pride, but with fear. Fear that Tu Tieu would see him as diminished. Fear that she would walk away once she knew the truth. But within that fear grew a decision. He could not wait any longer. He would go tonight, not as a wealthy man, but as a man who loved. The flowers were simple, the ring plain, but they carried sincerity carved deep into his heart. Even if she says no, he whispered, I must tell her. Even if I have nothing, I still have this. As twilight deepened, Uri stepped outside. Each step toward her house was a step toward both risk and redemption. By the time Uri reached Tu Tieu's home, the sky had softened into amber and violet, the hush of evening falling over the farm. She stood in the doorway, simple and unadorned, the scent of boiling rice drifting faintly behind her. For a long moment, Uri could only stand and watch. The ordinariness of her life, the worn wooden walls, the soft glow of lamplight, the gentle sound of a child breathing in the next room, was more beautiful than any stage he could have prepared. He stepped forward, flowers trembling slightly in his hands. Tu Tieu's brow furrowed in surprise. Her eyes flickered to the necklace, then to the small box he carried. "Why today?" she asked softly, as if afraid of what the answer might be. Uri's voice wavered, yet it carried the determination of countless sleepless nights. "Because I can't keep this inside any longer. Tu Tieu, I've carried you in my heart for so long. I want to care for you, for your child, for every breath of your days." He paused, then lowered his gaze. "But before you answer, I need to tell you the truth. My world has collapsed. The wealth, the company, the name, they're all gone. What I can offer isn't luxury. It's only myself. Will you still walk with me?" Silence stretched between them like an ocean. Tu Tieu clutched the flowers, her lips parting, but no words came. Her eyes glistened with conflict, fear and tenderness warring in her heart. She stood caught between the weary reality of her struggles and the fragile promise standing before her. Finally, she whispered, "I need time." The ring lingered in Uri's hand, a circle unclosed. The sun dipped behind the fields, leaving them in the tender half-light where every heartbeat felt louder than words. In that pause, love became not an answer, but a question, suspended in the space between hope and hesitation. The night deepened, carrying with it a silence that pressed gently upon the small house. Uri set the ring on the table beside the bouquet, still resting in Tu Tieu's hands. He forced a faint smile, though his chest ached with the weight of waiting. "I'll be patient," he said quietly, his voice steady, like a vow whispered into the air. "I'll wait until your heart is ready." Tu Tieu lowered her gaze, brushing a petal with her fingertips. From the next room came the soft stirrings of her child, a tender reminder of the life she must protect. She felt torn between the warmth of Uri's promise and the fear of burdening him with her struggles, between the comfort of companionship and the shadow of unworthiness that clung to her. Uri moved closer to the cradle, watching the baby's calm breathing. His voice broke the silence, gentle but firm. "Even if he's not my blood, I'll love him as if he were my own." His words carried no grandeur, no false certainty, only the quiet gravity of a man offering his entire heart. The room filled with unspoken emotion. The flowers leaned toward the floor. The necklace caught the dim lamplight, and the ring remained untouched on the table. Outside, the wind brushed against the trees like a hesitant song. They sat together without speaking, both aware that this silence was heavier than any declaration. Between them lay a choice unmade, fragile as glass. Love was no longer a simple confession. It was a trial of endurance, of trust, of faith in the face of ruin. Hours passed. The night wrapped itself around the little home. Tu Tieu laid her child down and returned to sit across from Uri. Her eyes carried exhaustion, but also a quiet strength. "Do you understand what you're asking?" she said softly. "My life is not easy. Every day is filled with labor, with sacrifice. I can't promise beauty or comfort, only more struggle. Uri met her gaze, steady and unflinching. I don't need comfort, Tu Tieu. I just need you. Whatever storms come, I'd rather face them with you than live in ease without you. Her hands trembled slightly as she pressed the flowers closer to her chest. The petals brushed her cheek, fragile reminders of the moment they were both trapped in. But love alone doesn't feed a child, she whispered. What if one day you regret choosing me? What if the weight of my life becomes too heavy for you? Uri leaned forward, his voice thick with emotion. I've already lost everything else. Regret has haunted me long enough. The only thing I won't regret is loving you. Tu Tieu closed her eyes. The room seemed to still. The baby's breathing, the rustle of leaves outside, the faint crackle of the cooking fire. For a heartbeat, it felt as though the world itself was holding its breath, waiting for her answer. But she did not speak. She could not. Instead, she rose quietly, placing the flowers into a vase, touching the ring, but leaving it on the table. She turned away, her shoulders tense, her heart warring with itself. Uri remained seated, his hands clasped, his eyes fixed on the quiet strength of the woman before him. He did not push. He did not plead. He simply waited, knowing some choices cannot be rushed. Outside, the wind carried the scent of soil and fruit from the orchard. The moonlight touched the fields, turning them silver. Within the small house, two souls sat together, close yet apart, bound not by certainty, but by the fragile thread of possibility. Tu Tieu finally spoke, her voice almost a whisper. Love. Can it really survive storms, Uri? Can it endure hunger, exhaustion, disappointment? Uri's reply came without hesitation. Love doesn't erase the storms, Tu Tieu, but it gives us something to hold on to while they rage. It gives us a reason to keep walking forward. Her eyes shone, caught between tears and light. She wanted to believe him. She wanted to step into that fragile promise. But she also knew the weight of reality, the endless demands of motherhood, the shadows of her own doubts. So she said only one thing, then wait. Wait and see if love is enough. The hours passed into silence. Uri eventually stood, leaving the ring where it lay and the necklace untouched. He leaned gently over the cradle, brushing the baby's tiny hand with his finger, a silent vow etched in the softness of that moment. Turning back to Tu Tieu, he offered a faint, steady smile. I'll wait, however long it takes. And with that, he stepped into the night. The door closed softly behind him, leaving Tu Tieu alone with her child, her doubts, and the fragile glow of hope that lingered in the air. She touched the flowers once more, inhaled their fading scent, and let her tears fall quietly into the silence. Tu Tieu, a young mother, begins her day in quiet resilience, torn between caring for her child and working to survive. Life has forced her into maturity, yet she remains gentle and grateful. Uri, a man burdened by hidden bankruptcy, dreams of confessing his love to her. Despite his ruined wealth, he carries flowers, a ring, and the courage to reveal his truth. At Tu Tieu's home, his proposal is met with hesitation. her heart conflicted between hope and fear. She longs for love, but worries about the weight of hardship and motherhood. Uri assures her that even without riches, he will stand by her and love her child as his own. Their evening becomes a test of patience, faith, and endurance. Love lingers between them, fragile yet unbroken, waiting for time to decide its fate.